We will call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Sorry, we're going to do that first. We're going to do the public tax hearing first. All right, we'll call the meeting to order in a little bit.
Perfect, thank you. All right, well, I'd like to welcome everybody to this year's tax rate hearing for Grain Valley School District. I'm going to go through a quick presentation just to show you this year's numbers, how they lined up with the previous year, and the recommendation that I will be making to the school board tonight for where to accept a tax rate. So moving on here, let's talk about these numbers. So the 2025 assessment numbers for the school district, I'm going to quickly go through these points. There we go. There is our total. So we have a $425.7 million in residential, agriculture, $1.952 million, commercial, $82.433 million, personal property, $77.882 million, for a grand total of this year's assessment of $588,046,554. How that would compare with last year's number. So last year's assessed valuation was $559,290,858. You can see that this year's number being $588,046,554. That is a difference this year of an increase. So our assessed valuation did go up by $28,755,696. If we look at last year's operating levy, our operating levy removes the debt service levy. And so if you remove that, our operating levy last year was $3 or 3.4382. And my proposal for this year is 3.4396. So as you can see, there is a very slight difference, a difference of 0.0014. A few more comparisons. The district's debt service levy from last year was $1.30. That is the proposed or my recommended rate for this school year. So there is no difference in that number as a recommendation, which brings the total operating levy for this year. Well, let me rephrase that. The total operating levy from 2024 was $4 or 4.7382. And this year's is 4.7396. And so once again, this is an increase, very small, of 0.0014. So pennies. Looking at the breakdown of this year's tax rate, the proposed rate for incidental would be 2.4396, leaving $1 in the teacher's fund, which you add those two numbers together, and that's what brings up the proposed rate when I remove the debt service. We have a continuation of $1.30 in debt service levy, and then for our capital projects historically, and we're going to continue this, my recommendation is to make that 0, which again brings the total to 4.7396. A few other numbers just to kind of compare these with things that are happening this year with the overall values of things, plus maybe some comparisons with some dollar amounts from last year. But this year's new construction was very high. I will say that in the years past, we have had years anywhere from, let's say, $5 to $10 million range. And when this one came in at $24,379,777, I was a little taken back. So I did reach out to Jackson County, and I asked them to confirm those numbers, just because that's a number that we historically don't see. And they were able to confirm it, and I did get that from the county assessor as well, a confirmation that that is our correct new construction number, which is a great number for our school district. So because of that, we are able to grab one-time money here of new revenue from the new construction and improvements, a value of $838,596. And then with the reassessment that everybody gets. This year's reassessment value for the school district, the 0.0014, that equates to $158,000 in new revenue, $158,344 of new revenue for the school district because of the reassessment. So that number is lower than past years, but new revenue from new construction, clearly you can see that's pretty high. So that's great news for us there. So basically, bottom line, last year's 2024 tax rate was 4.7382. I am proposing this year 4.7396, with again a difference of 0.0014 more than last year's 2024 rate. I will take any questions from anybody in the audience.
Are there any questions? All right, seeing none.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gooch. Appreciate it. All right. We will call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Dr. Taylor, would you lead us in the pledge? Look for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved. Second.
All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that will take us to patron comments. Any school district patron may present information to the board at this time. Presentations will be limited to no more than 5 minutes. The board will not take action on any issue not included on the published agenda. However, all comments will be taken into consideration by the Board of Education. Patrons are requested not to discuss individual faculty, staff, or students. Patrons are reminded that this is a public forum and comments relative to individuals could result in litigation. However, any patron may request to meet with the board in executive session. No response will be given by the board at this time. We do have one patron signed up. Ms. Brill?
Start sitting closer. First, I want to begin by thanking Dr. Welly, who went out of his way to let me know that the last workshop meeting was not on its regular day. And since I'm not on social media, which he knows, he went out of his way to let me know, and I appreciate it. It didn't result in me being here. The reason I come before you tonight is I have listened to this board spend an inordinate amount of time discussing key card access of board members to the buildings of this school district. I have yet to understand why you need key card access. I've heard many times board members say, "Why do we need this?" The only actual response I ever heard was on YouTube when I watched. When asked directly, the answer was, "Why not?" Well, I come before you as a classroom teacher who, admittedly 3 decades ago, experienced a member of the community throw open my door in the middle of class. I don't exactly know why, except they were in fear of what dangerous propaganda I was teaching. These people came to our school regularly and just threw open the door. Now, if you are not a classroom teacher, this is a big deal. Anybody could have come in my classroom, sat quietly in the back, and listened to anything I said. But the influence of that kind of what it felt to me like was attack, was very unsettling. Very unsettling. It still bothers me all this time way. I don't know what community members, and please understand I do not represent just myself, other patrons of this school are concerned about this decision, especially when it was brought back at a workshop on an unusual day. There is very great suspicion about this request by the board and this vote by the board. I am deeply suspicious and fear that there is some kind of anti-education agenda behind this effort to get in the school when these key cards don't get you any further, if I understand correctly, get you any further than you would normally. So I wish to let you know that this is my reaction, the reaction of many people I know, and what's done is done, but the result has been to really shake my confidence in this board. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We don't have any other patrons signed up. Would anybody else like to speak? All right, that will take us to reports. Oh, I can do that. First item on the agenda would be, I'd look for a motion to approve the purchase of property adjacent to Matthews Elementary to include parcel numbers 37-530-03-00-0-00-0000 and 37-530-03-35-00-0-00-000 and 37-540-99-02-00-000-000 for $2,465,000.
So move.
Could you repeat that? No. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Dr. Welly, can you?
Yeah, thank you. The purchase of these additional acres will allow us to make improvements at Matthews Elementary, including additional classrooms, student restrooms, additional parking, improved traffic flow for cars and buses, and other improvements at the school. And with the board's approval, we would expect to close on this property in October, and the purchase sets the stage for a bond issue that we would bring to voters as soon as April of 2026.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
I do have one quick question. The bond issue would be for improvements potentially to this building. Would it also be for the cost of the building, or is that coming out of other funding?
Yes, thank you. So our estimated amount for the bond issue in April is going to be roughly around $40 million. As much as $20 million of that would be for improvements at Matthews, but the land purchase would be included in that. So the next item on the agenda tonight is our lease purchase agreement. So we're going to enter into a lease purchase agreement to get ourselves the money on the front end so that we can already say to voters, look, we know we can do this because we've already secured the land to do it. And then we'll make it clear with voters our intent in the ballot language that we'll list the key things we want to accomplish, and one of them will be to basically to reimburse for the land, to basically pay off the lease purchase. And LJ Hart will work with us between now and December to come back with a clear ballot language that is clear to the voters and is something that we can hang our hat on in terms of what we intend to do. But even the bond issue in April, Matthews is just half of that bond. There will be other improvements. There'll be some other priorities that we're talking about, including next level secure vestibules throughout the district. We also wish to address outdoor activity space for middle school, and we're hopeful that when we do the vestibule work, that we can, when we do a vestibule like at Early Childhood Center, that maybe there's an opportunity there to open up some space, make a pretty big vestibule. But like I said, there's a lot of planning and prep work to do, but that's the long answer about $40 million to your question about how we pay for this. Yep.
Any other questions from the board? Dr. Welly, I mean, we've discussed this multiple times, trying to make sure that it's as transparent as possible what we're doing. Have you had any feedback from the community or?
I have. Everything that's made its way to me has been positive. I think there's a general enthusiasm, a little bit of surprise, but an enthusiastic surprise that we would take our attention and focus it on Matthews. I think Matthews is a point of pride for so many within the community, and whether your life has been directly touched by Matthews or you've just part of this community, I think everybody's kind of excited for an opportunity to do something special for that school. So it's been very positive.
Very good. All right, with that, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And thank you for not making me read it all again.
You did great.
Next item on the agenda would be, I'd look for a motion to approve a resolution for the sale of Series 2025 lease certificates of participation with L.J. Hart and Company and the establishment of a final terms committee.
So move.
All right. Dr. Welly, can you?
Yeah, we're pleased to have with us Dr. Wesley Townsend with L.J. Hart with us tonight. We bring forward a plan to make interest-only payments for the first 3 years of this lease agreement, and the loan is structured with a call feature after 3 years. It can be paid in full at that time with revenue from the sale of bonds as soon as, for example, if we did April of 2026. The board is not locked in on an April 2026 bond issue, so I don't want you to feel that you are. But if you didn't do it next spring and you did it instead in 2027, then that 3-year call feature still gives you the flexibility to, whenever you do your next bond issue, to cover this lease purchase agreement. So, but we're pleased to have Dr. Townsend with us tonight. If there are any questions, I do think he wants to kind of talk through. We'll let you give a little bit of a presentation. I don't want to totally cut you off there.
And I'll kind of give a high-level view of it, and if there's any specific questions, just let me know. Basically, a lease purchase is different from a different kind of financing than what you normally do as a bond issue. The annual lease payments for the principal and interest are paid for out of your capital projects fund, whereas your bond issue, there's a dedicated levy that generates the revenue to pay your bonds off. That all it can be used for. The lease purchases debt does not count towards your legal capacity, and the annual payments are subject to appropriation by the board through the budgeting process each year. So there is a difference between this and a bond issue. The estimated, basically 2 documents I want to look at tonight fairly quickly, but first is the estimated repayment schedule, and since the rates and the certificates are not finalized yet, these are estimates, and the resolution is called a parameters resolution. So as long as the rates come in the next couple of weeks when we finalize them, if they meet the rates we're presenting tonight or below it, then your superintendent, board president, and our president, Tom, can lock everything in and finalize everything. So the Schedule 9 you have up there, you can see it's $2.465 million, and we will only issue what's needed once the rates are determined and the premiums are determined and all that. We'll only issue what's needed for the sale of it. It's a 15-year maturity, and there, like Brad said, delayed principal payments for 3 years and then a 3-year call feature. So if you look at that schedule, you can see the first principal payment is due April of 2029. They're estimated at 5% coupons with investors paying a premium that we'll get into in just a second. So if you look at the yield statistics at the very bottom, about the sixth line down, you can see the yield for arbitrage purposes is 3.86. So that's the effective interest rate that the district will be paying. And how that is calculated, if you look at the next page, which is the pricing summary. The fourth column over, the yield, you can see they're from 3.04 down to 4.51. Those are the effective rates. The maturities are listed, and then the prices. You can just take that top one, for example. The price column, it's 104.684%. So an investor would pay you the dollar price at the far right, the $167,494, and when you pay the principal back, you only pay back the $160,000. So that's what generates the premium. And if you total all that up, the premium is that second line on the bottom. The reoffering premium is a total of around $65,877. And the final page is the sources and uses. Top section, you can see the proceeds from the lease, and then the premium and the estimated total sources of fund, $2,530,877. After the cost of issuance are paid, which this is a not to exceed amount of $65,112, and these are all one-time expenses also, except for that one paying agent fee that will be $1,800 a year. But after all that is deducted out of your sources of funds, and the deposit for the land acquisition is there in the center, the $2,465,764. And I didn't mention, but this schedule was prepared, as Tom worded it, very conservative, because it was before the Fed meeting yesterday, and also your S&P call went very well, and it depends on what your rates are, what your S&P rating is too on this lease purchase. So we're really expecting rates to come in better than what we presented tonight. So, any questions on those numbers?
Any
All right.
questions?
Okay, next is the resolution that would require board approval to move forward with it. Basically, that first paragraph of all capital letters, it's kind of a summary of everything. You're approving a project, and down in there, the project is defined as the land acquisition for the issuance of lease certificates not to exceed $2.5 million, approving documents and actions that are necessary, and then an establishment of that final terms committee. On the second page, section 1 is where the main parameters are that I wanted to go over. And you can see kind of in the middle of that paragraph, talks about the date, the final years of maturity, the interest rates, prices, call date shall be determined by the final terms committee. And that fourth line from the bottom, the interest rate shall not exceed yield for arbitrage purposes of 5%. So as long as we come in what we presented tonight or below this 5%, then those three can finalize everything. If something crazy happened in the market and we could not get rates that good, then it would need to come back before the full board before it was finalized. Page 3, second paragraph on it. This is where the paragraph that stipulates the call date of April 15th, 2028. So, and it's at the sole discretion of the district. If it's economical and beneficial for the district, or whether you're paying it off with a bond issue or whatever, if it's economical and you want to do it, you can. If you don't want to do it, you're not locked into it. You can continue. And it's a 100% principal, so no penalty on the prepayment.
I would interject that the primary reason why we would be motivated at this point to use one set of loan revenue to pay off another set of loan revenue is because this lease purchase gets paid for out of our operating levy, whereas the bond gets paid for out of our debt service levy. So operating levy is more than 80% salaries and benefits. So any obligations we put towards our operating levy, that goes against, potential raises or additional staff. So that's why we, in the short term, paying interest only, we know we can do. But once we get past that first 3 years and we start paying on the principal, then we assume at this point, 3 years ahead of time, that that's going to be a less desirable situation to be in. So at this point, we plan to promote with the community our intent to pay this off with bond revenue.
Yeah, that's a great point. Final, page 8, final section I'll look at is that section 10 on page 8, and this just specifies the final terms committee is the superintendent, president, and our president, Tom, so. Any questions on any of these?
All right, any questions? All right, doesn't look like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you do have a motion.
We do. So the motion is to approve the resolution for the sale of Series 2025 lease certificates of participation with LJ Hart and Company and the establishment of a final terms committee. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Wait, did we do a motion and a second on that one? Yes. Okay, sorry. I didn't, okay. All right. Sorry, go ahead.
Right, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Let us know if you need.
All right, that will take us to the superintendent's report.
All right, a few highlights. First of all, you have year-to-date operating revenues and expenses. We are tracking accordingly there. We also have our health premium overages, which we have not yet made a payment towards our $900,000 that we've budgeted for the year, but we do have one on the horizon that we'll be doing yet this fall. In attendance, we're off to a good start. We ended up with a very good year last year, and we're starting off in a good place for this school year. In this box, the MSIP 6 proportional attendance box, this is what we talked about last month, that we will kind of put this on like a 3-topic rotation about what we put in here. So as soon as next month, I think we can anticipate a graphic to kind of illustrate where we're at on our lunch debt collection. So, but we are going to talk about that in reports tonight too, presumably. So overall, it's been a very smooth start to our school year. Today we have 4,466 students in K through 12, not a significant change from what we had last year. Now, next month, we will report as soon as, hopefully, the workshop will do a year-over-year comparison of where we're at with our enrollments, and we'll kind of dive in building by building a little bit this year. Since we're on the verge of planning some additions at one or more elementary schools, we'll want to know how each of the elementary schools is trending. Also wanted to give an update on school board member key card access. You passed this resolution the last time that you met. Any board member who wishes to be issued a key card, you can initiate the process by sending me an email, and I will get you connected with our background check process, and then I will report to the board periodically when either key cards are issued or there's any other updates. So, and then you have calendar of events. We don't have any changes down below. I do believe that last time maybe we had already integrated the with your board meetings when the superintendent search information is going to be integrated into that. So you have a schedule there that takes you to the January school board meeting. So we should have most of the key dates for the fall. I do want to give one more reminder that you have your statewide MSBA annual conference, October 23rd to the 25th. Just be sure to let Ms. Clappin know if you're interested in that. We'll make sure that we get you registered. And I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Gooch, who's gonna give you a quick update on lunch debt recovery, and then from there open it up to any other questions.
Thank you, Dr. Willey. So I know that if you read ahead and saw in the report that we are down from our lunch debt from where we ended the school year, I will say that is very common from year to year. That is a once families return to the school year over the summer, a lot of families will make initial deposits, pay off some other amounts, some smaller debts, things like that. And so we are down approximately from where we ended the school year to approximately a week ago, we're down around $30,000. I will say that part of that also is due to the work that we were able to do at the beginning of the year. And I say we really look over to Dr. Smith and his team and Mr. Hughes and his team for the hard work that they did. But we were also, inside that $30,000 reduction, there's a few $1,000s in there as well from the work that the high school, the effort that they did to, let parents know about the different things that they, couldn't do, for example, parking passes and so on. The second thing I'd like to just let you know is I have started pursuing now a partnership with a debt collection company. And I'm in the initial stages of working with them, and I would look to bring back an agreement next month for the board to approve to officially work with a collection agency to have them assist us in the recoupment of additional debt for families who hit a certain threshold amount. And so I will have more information and, like I said, an agreement for you guys in the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions on the superintendent's report?
This is like for the whole thing, right?
Yep.
Okay. I have a question on our communication plan that was in there, which I think looks great and is fabulous in a lot of ways. When you are looking at some of the analytics on Parent Square and the engagement with community and how we're hearing those things, that's awesome that we can look at those things. It said on your measures, there's a couple of different ways you're going to look monthly at those types of things. Sorry, I don't know who I'm. Yeah. So that's, is that something that then we can add into our report as well to kind of see what you're finding, how much engagement we're receiving, the types of posts, if there's a time of day? Like, I would love to know just kind of your plan for what you're hoping to gain out of the feedback, because it's nice to know if it's reaching anybody.
Yeah, so we can absolutely get all analytics reported. We'll also, I just recently started pulling social media analytics so that we can see what's working on social media and really boost the engagement there. But yeah, we can absolutely pull all of the Parent Square analytics and share that too.
Yeah, that's great. And then on your guide of like your evaluation tool, who will go through, is that just your team that you'll use as an internal piece? Like, here's the goal, here's what it set out, and here's like 3, 2, 1, how we measure on that? What, is that internal or is that broader?
I think that could be, I would say both, because I think that me and Anita will look at it and observe it from the communication standpoint, but then we'll also have Dr. Allen look over it, and then Superintendent Dr. Welly, if he would like to also look over those types of information so that they can kind of see and use the different perspective that they would have versus our communication perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely appreciate the plan. I love that those things are in there with the different pieces and how that works and who's responsible for what. Is that something, like, this isn't necessarily, are we publishing this, or is this like our internal use, like here's how everything looks, or? I don't know if it needs to be published.
No, in this form, it isn't necessarily published, but there'll be aspect of this that very much impact a lot of what gets published.
Right, okay, that was but thank you. It's good to have a plan in place.
All right. Any other questions on the report? I just noticed in the high school portion of the report, the enrollment, the notes were that we've reached a record, I believe is what it said, high for enrollment for this year. How is enrollment as far as numbers and capacity at the high school looking?
We are, technically, we're at capacity at the high school, but being at capacity at the high school means something different than it does at our other schools, because by design, So when the architects have put together our long-range plan, the building is designed knowing that they're on a 4-block system. And so even though we are on our 4-block capacity, there are empty classrooms each hour. So it's less urgent. It's enough to keep us wanting to, when we push pause on that plan, we're gonna have to come back to it in the next few years to continue the work at the high school. But we're not in an urgent sort of situation. But yes, if this is another record year, as it appears to be, then the high school they've had an increase in, this will be like 12 out of the last 14 years in a row or something like that. So, and we'll dive deeper in that next month too.
Very good. Also, wanted to highlight the, 27 students showing interest in the Teacher Valley Academy program. So we're just mentoring them along now with their commitment being, when would they be committing to that?
Yeah, Dr. Allen?
So it's a 2-year program. So last year, what you all approved were sort of those agreements with graduates. So we would have another graduating class this year, and then there's a junior class that would move up. So with the 2-year program. So out of the 27, I don't know how many of those, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, are seniors versus, okay. So it's obviously word's gotten around, and so the junior class is exploding, which is great, because we had pretty low numbers the last 2 years, but we know it takes a little time for word to get around. So we're just excited by the fact that it's working, and it's in the way that we expected it to work, and we think we've got the right people in place to keep it growing over time. So last year, we had a phenomenal group of what we had. And so we basically offered that agreement with all of them. Once we get to a class, of 24 or more, it'll become an interview process, and we'll just select those top tier to make that offer to, not necessarily to everyone. So.
Okay, very good. All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you for that. That will take us to the 2025 state assessment results.
Dr. Allen, if you'd take the helm.
Sure. All right, so I'm going to start with, I always try to provide a little bit of context for last year, 24-25 school years, MAP and EOC assessment data. So this would be the same. It doesn't necessarily mean the same form, but essentially the same format and same type of test for the last 4 years, with the first year in 2022 not actually counting for accountability. We essentially just took it to take it, I should say. And so the 23, 24, and 25 school years are the 3 accountability years, which once we have 3, we're able to develop a composite score and do our initial classification. So that's when accreditation comes back officially. It's been a long time since pre-COVID since that's occurred. So any day now our APR should be out, and that's when the classifications come out as well. So this was third year for accountability. This last year was the first year that the state introduced testlets, which are Missouri Instructional Testlets is their full name. But essentially they're sort of like mini MAP tests that you can use throughout the year, and depending on the subject and the grade level, they'd have a different number. So you might have 7 of them, or you might have 11 of them, but it was up to the teacher to be able to incorporate those throughout the school year based on what their current learning target was, and use those to try to help students with test-taking strategies, understand the different test types. We're really excited by the prospect of those. They didn't come out till almost the end of first semester, and so we didn't really get to fully utilize those. But I will say, moving forward, as we started writing curriculum this summer, now we're getting to integrate those into our curriculum writing and put them just where they should be and fully utilize them throughout the school year this year. And then in November again, so again a little late, at the very end of November, they're coming out with an EOC version. So they'll have sort of, it's like a little chunk of the MAP test to be able to practice and work with your class. You can openly talk about the questions. The teachers get to see the questions. So we're really excited by that, hoping that sheds a little light on some of the mystery behind MAP and EOC testing. So we're excited for that. And then We do struggle to motivate students at the end of every year. We have so many state requirements now, from screenings to diagnostics to literacy tasks to MAP testing. We basically meet as an admin team all the time talking about which one should we do first? Which one will they try hardest on then? How do we keep them motivated through these last few weeks of school? So that's going to continue to be a struggle. And then on a positive note, we were able to get our raw test scores on July 7th. It has been pre-COVID since we've been able to see test scores and actually use them for anything. We were receiving them so late, it was like, great, that's how we did. We're already halfway or more through the school year before we even looked at the scores. So we didn't get to really utilize these other than post-mortem in any way. So we're excited by the fact that we're getting to start the school year with actual information from last school year and react and use that information moving forward. So I've kind of chunked these because I felt like we were scrolling so quickly last year, because it is just kind of showing you a snapshot of where we were in 2025. So we're starting with ELA. So third grade ELA has been an area that we struggled with for many, many years, just meeting the state average. I was excited last year because we tied with the state. Well, this year we're 2% over, which again isn't a huge celebration, but we're excited for the movement. Just as a reminder, these bar graphs are tied with out of the 4 performance level descriptors. So you've got below basic, basic, proficient, and advanced. These are proficient and advanced together. So, where we want our kids to be. So it's 2 of the performance categories added together. So ELA, we went up just a little bit more, but again, that's the kids' first year of testing. We're hoping Testlets continue to help with that to give them a little bit of exposure ahead of their first time of taking it. In fourth grade ELA, we maintained, we're pleased that we're so far ahead of state. Of course, we continue to strive higher every year, but we pretty much stayed the same from the previous year. And then in fifth grade ELA, we did remain above state average, not very much so, and we did lose a few percentage points. And so fifth grade ELA, along with a couple other fifth grade areas, is sort of an area of emphasis for us to try to dig into and figure out why the fifth grade assessment is such a struggle for us. So one of the things that we will do is look at the item summary that'll tell us which standard each question pertained to, how we did on those, as well as which question type and which depth of knowledge was asked, and try to do a little bit of deciphering into maybe areas where we need to speed up or slow down our pacing, maybe different types of question types to expose the students to. But at least we're able to do that this year since we have the data so far in advance. So then when we shift to middle school, sixth grade ELA had been a real pain point, kind of like third grade ELA had, and we're continuing to pull away from state, which is really good news. We increased our average by 8% from last year, which is a huge jump. I mean, that's really hard to do in 1 year. So we'll see if that maintains, or it was just a particular cohort of students. But as we continue to write curriculum with middle school ELA, they're about finished. That's exciting that then we get to the implementation phase and we actually get to do a little internal measuring throughout the school year. So we're excited by that increase in sixth grade ELA. Seventh grade ELA, we pretty much maintained proficiency level from last year. It is above the state. It's not where we want it to be. The seventh grade ELA test, something seems harder about it. We've determined every single year, and it's not just for us that struggles with it when we compare. So again, it's just making sure that we're focusing on our priority standards. We've got our curriculum in line, and then we start looking at the instructional strategies as sort of the next step to make sure that we can continue to pull ahead in that area. Eighth grade ELA, just like fourth grade ELA, is when that writing component is in there, and for some reason we really soar when they throw in a writing component, so that's great news. Eighth grade increased by an additional 5% this year over last year, which is a really, really good amount of growth, so we were excited by that. And then, of course, we moved to the EOC at the high school for ELA 2. We saw a jump, a huge jump actually this year, to an impressive 70%. I actually had to adjust the scale on this one just to be able to fit it. So that's always really exciting when I get to move the scale. So Really excited by the performance with high school language arts. So then I'm going to shift to math. Third grade math, again, students' first time taking the MAP test. We're not below state level, which we have been, so that's good news. There was some growth, but we do hope to continue to make improvements. Math is a huge focus area. We're just implementing the first year of our curriculum in math for this year for elementary. So we do hope over time to see greater increases. Fourth grade math, we did lose a few points this year in fourth grade math, but I will tell you our jump was so high last year that I did anticipate that. You know, when you jump 15, 20% in a year, it's really hard to maintain that. You just assume there'd be a slight drop, and that's kind of what we saw this year. And then fifth grade math, we were 1 percentage point away from where we were last year, so I kind of consider that a wash. But again, math is a huge area of focus this year, implementing the first year of a brand new curriculum that we're really excited by. So we're just going to have to give that a little time and be a little patient as we continue to implement new math curriculum. Switching to middle school, I would just say middle school math we dominate over. It's an area we have had curriculum written in for 5+ years now. The resource seems very impactful. Our teachers are highly qualified and their instructional strategies and do a really great job. Sixth grade math grew 10% this year. So again, if I come back to you next year and I'm like, oh, we dropped 2%, I won't be shocked because a 10% of growth in 1 year is a lot. For seventh grade math, we're within 1% of where we were last year, but it's an amazing level of proficiency. So I think that's great to maintain in that area. Eighth grade math for the state typically is a huge struggle, and for some of our neighbors because that's that grade when we remove Algebra 1 students. So you're down to about 75% of your population testing. But we continue to do really well in there. We grew another 5% this year, which is excellent. Shifting to Algebra 1, this is where the students shift to the EOC, and some of them take them in middle school, and some of them take them in high school. So this is sort of a unique score that it encapsulates both middle schools and the high school. It reached over 62% proficiency this year with a 13% increase. So I will say the state overall saw an increase, or we would get to look even more like we were dominating in that area. They did increase as well, but I was really pleased with the increase that we're seeing in algebra. Algebra 2 continues to be high, but again, this is a very small group of students that typically take this EOC. These would be the students who took it in 8th grade. And so we would expect this score to be high year over year. But I did have to alter this scale as well, which is always thrilling for me, so that was great, to get them up to 85%. Shifting to science then, we did take a step back in 5th grade science. However, this is the first year of implementing new science curriculum this year as well. We've never had any in the past, so we're really excited by that. And again, I will try to be patient as I can as we give that a few years of implementation. I will say that we did kind of tie with the state in a couple of areas. Well, in 3rd grade math, this was really the only one that we were below the state average, and we never want to be there. So, I mean, obviously a huge area of emphasis for us will be digging into 5th grade science information this year. 8th grade science had a 12% increase this year, which is amazing. Again, that's a huge amount of growth. The reason 8th grade's so challenging is it contains information from 6th, 7th, and 8th. And so that's a lot of information to cover. So we're very pleased with our progress in 8th grade science. And then we switched to the EOC for Biology 1. Our bio scores reached 55% proficiency this year, and it was a few points lower than last year, but not a huge decrease by any means. And again, sometimes you got to determine if that's the cohort of students or what that situation might be. We also saw a slight loss of 3 percentage points in government this year. And so one of the things I'm excited by is the fact that we do get to see those testlets starting at the end of November for these EOC tests. So it'll be a new tool we've never had at the high school to try to help push. Our EOC tests haven't changed a lot over the years. And so we've been stuck, you know, if we're stuck at a particular place, we need something to push us there. So I'm really excited by the prospect of incorporating those this year at the high school. Then I randomly threw in a not state assessment slide, but I couldn't help myself. Our AP tests, you see, we have 726 exams given during the same period of time that EOCs are being given at the high school. So even though this isn't a state test, they're a college level test, they're all given at the same time. And I just thought it'd be a nice tradition to put this in here and we can compare over time. So all you see is last year's, but you know, we can add in over time a little bit here as we go. But most of this information I think was shared in our board report another month, so I won't spend a long time, but I liked to have that in here just for future years. So then we kind of switched to our cohort analysis where we're kind of looking at students over time. So the class of 2029, just to help you with the math, are currently freshmen, but these tests would reflect their 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade years. So the very first test that you see on this graph would be 5th grade ELA ending with 8th grade ELA. And again, I told you that 6th grade ELA was a pain point for us for many years, but we've seemed to start to get some momentum there, so that's good, so we can look at these patterns over time as well. And then for that same class in math, again, this would be their 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math years. Proficiency levels increase greatly over middle school. We feel really confident in our middle school math scores. Class of 2030 for ELA, this would be their 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade tests. They're currently 8th graders right now, so they'll have one more year of MAP and or EOC testing. And again, for ELA, we see that dreaded slope down to 6th grade, and then it start to return for 7th and 8th, and we had noticed that pattern over time. Again, I'm excited by this year's 6th grade numbers and hope we don't continue to see that pattern continue over time. And then for that same class, for their 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade math scores, again, we see that dip in 5th grade, which will be another area of emphasis for us this year, will be those 5th grade areas, and then some growth in 6th and 7th. The class of 2031, this would be current 7th graders this year, and when they took the test in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And again, you can kind of see that slope of ELA struggling a little more in 5th and 6th, which we've identified previously, areas to focus on. And then for that same class of current 7th graders, when they took math in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, again, you see the dip in 5th and then a drastic increase in 6th, 7th. So we've got the pattern down. Now it's just deciphering what to do about it. Then the class of 2032, these would be our current 6th graders. So they were able to assess in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And again, following a very similar trend as we see cohorts over time. And then their math class for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade math for 2032. And again, we tend to do really well in 4th grade and struggle more in 3rd and 5th, and that's been identified with patterns over time. Lastly, we have our class of 2033, and these are our current 5th graders, so they've only assessed in 3rd and 4th grade. And again, we tend to see an increase with positive and good scores in 4th grade, and the same could be said for math for 3rd and 4th grade for math. So overall, just looking at strengths, you know, we're happy the farther that we can get away from the state averages, areas that we can pull away. All of our cohorts remained above the state averages in the 25-26 school year, which is great. So if you look at their end year for each one of those cohorts, they were all above state averages. We did see growth in all but one grade level in MAP and one particular subject for MAP. I should have put the word MAP in there. We did have several subjects which saw approximately 10% increase in performance, which is always exciting, which was 6th grade math, 8th grade science, 6th grade ELA, and English 2. Middle school and high school math also continues to dominate over state averages. We still get calls from other school districts wanting to know what we're doing, so that's always exciting. Well, it's our staff, and I tell them don't take them. Challenges here, 5th grade science, along with a couple other of our 5th grade content areas are gonna be a real focus for us to dive in deeper on the data this year. We do continue to battle with test fatigue at the end of the year. There just seems to be more assessments every year. Pushing students from basic to proficient seems to be harder for us than getting them out of below basic. We have over time reduced our below basic numbers, but we seem to kind of get stuck in that basic category. And so what are we doing to push them to proficient? And you could argue even from proficient to advanced. The students' first year of MAP testing in third grade continues to be an area of improvement. We are seeing improvement, but that first year of testing is always hard. And then, we're excited by our progress with writing curriculum. We think that's a great first step, but it is the first step because once you have the curriculum in place, the next step is working on the instructional strategies that best match that and making sure that teachers can implement that with fidelity. So while I'm really excited about the progress we're making and we're showing a small amount of growth every year, which is great, I just keep telling myself to be patient. This is a process, and I have no doubt we're going to get there. It just takes a little bit of time. So any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
All right, thank you. Any questions on the assessments?
I don't even know where to start. That's a lot of information. You made the comment earlier that it might not be great that we've only gone up a couple points, but over the last couple of years, it's been interesting and encouraging watching you and your team work so hard to get to where it is. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
So one of the questions that I had, and I was just looking at fifth grade science is one that I made my note on.
Mhm.
So when you get your scores back, are they broken down building to building? Like, are some buildings doing better than others? Is that data that we have? How do you figure that out?
We do. So yes, we get it by building and by teacher. And so what's hard when you don't have written curriculum is when you ask a teacher, what are you doing so well? Or your building, let's take your whole building. This building did so much better than this building in this particular content area, or even these questions, it's really hard to answer. So that's one of the reasons we're so passionate about getting sort of that continuity between, along with common assessments developed throughout so that we don't have to wait till the next year to see how we're doing it and who's doing it the best, that we can be more responsive in real time, if that makes sense. So it's one of many factors, but I do, to me, we get to look at this the year after we're finished with those kids. We don't get to go back and do anything differently. And so I'm excited by the processes that we're putting into place that would allow us to be more responsive in real time.
So with the curriculum that we're developing and pushing out to the different grade levels and the different subjects, the intent is for all the buildings to have the same processes, same procedures, same learning tools, everything pretty consistent, and have that continuity, correct?
Yes, so what we're really shooting for right now is the same scope and sequence, so that's the pacing, the same proficiency scales, which is what you're measuring and how close the students are coming to each of those targets, and then as well as sort of some suggested resources and activities for that. So that's sort of the first step, and then we'll move next year when we'll have most of the curriculum written more to methods of instruction. So what are the best instructional strategies to match this particular learning target or proficiency scale, giving professional development over how do you do that instructional strategy, why is that the best, how do we implement it, and then having some fidelity going into the classroom and making sure it's actually implemented to the level and high expectation level that we have. So that's why I said it's a long process, and we're moving as fast, I feel like, as we can while doing good work. But it's, like I said, I just keep telling myself, be patient, 3 to 5 years. I feel like, I'm talk with my hands, sorry about that. I feel like we'll be in a stage where we can really say, okay, we've got established curriculum in every single content area. We have methods of instruction. Teachers know what are the evidence-based good instructional tools. Now when we're having problems and we're not making the progress we want to make, now we're going to have to go back and look at what is something, we've got to revise something that we planned that we wrote is not working the way that it's supposed to.
So and I know you're just getting this all implemented.
Yeah.
But as far as just examples, what do you foresee as the process to, go in and review those classrooms to make sure that everything is on track?
I'd say it's multi-factor. So one of them is going to be through common assessment, like just straight up data. So we'll be able to track how students are performing throughout the year. So if every fifth grade science student after Unit 1 takes a similar assessment, right, we're going to know immediately after Unit 1 who's rocking it, who's not. And again, you've got different kids at different buildings, right? Some of them might need more time. The teacher might need to go back and do some more teaching. So we'll adjust pacing based on that. We've got our administrators, which are our instructional leaders in the buildings that are pushing in to do evaluations and observations. This will be the first time that they're able to sit in a teacher's classroom, say, oh, there's the learning target. I can pull up the scope and sequence. I can see that you're where you're supposed to be, and that we're teaching to the level of the target that you're supposed to be teaching. We're not dumbing it down. We're not shooting below where we're supposed to be aiming. We've got instructional coaches at the elementary level that'll go in and do coaching cycles and will give feedback that's non-evaluative to teachers. And then all of our buildings pretty much, I think, even pre-K through K, do peer observation, where they go in and sort of watch each other teach. And it's a very safe environment. It's a lot of I wonders as opposed to evaluative, but I do think it pushes teachers in a lot of good ways. So I feel like we have a lot of things in place for sort of that feedback and accountability piece, if you want to call it that, to make sure we've got like a good level of fidelity in what we're implementing.
Okay, very good. So that answer just brought me a different question.
Sure.
So several months ago, Mr. English had asked a question about making sure that we're always pushing our students as far as they can go and making sure that there's always something for them to do. So you had just mentioned, you might, watching the pace, you might have to go back. So if we do have to go back, what are we doing to make sure that the students that don't have to go back are continuing to go forward?
It's a great question, and it's probably one of the biggest conundrums in teaching. I mean, when you've got 25 students and you've got 3 who are way behind, multiple grade levels behind, 3 who should be way ahead, and everybody else somewhere in the middle. I mean, it's really hard. What we've tried to work on and what we will work on when we move forward with methods of instruction, when we start working specifically on instructional strategies with teachers, is really something that I would argue that elementary teachers have done naturally since the beginning of time, which is pulling small groups. But I will tell you, our focus for probably the last, I don't want to make up a number, for several years has been on MTSS, which is catching those students up who are behind. And that was our focus. We had to get that process down. We had to train all of our teachers in OG or letters. We had to make sure we knew how to catch those kids up. So this is actually the first year, I'll just continue the elementary example, that for their weekly collabs, they're meeting about Tier 1 instruction, which is general instruction. What are we doing to push those kids? Whereas all we really had time for with their one plan time a week in the past few years has been focused on those below basic and those basic students and getting them caught up in reading and math. That absorbed all of the time because it just takes a lot of professional learning and teaching. So I'm excited by the fact that we're starting to shift towards a focus on Tier 1 instruction as opposed to Tier 2 and Tier 3. I'm also excited by the fact that I guess the openness and the willingness and the excitement that it's generating from our teaching staff along with our administrators. A lot of them reported on their on their board report how those Tier 1 collabs were going, that they were excited to be able to go back to focusing on that. And then the last thing I'd say is one of our main focuses in writing curriculum is the proficiency scale. And you really define what a 3 is, like where you want the students to be, but what does it look like to push students to the 4? How do we use more complex language to get students there? What's a higher depth of knowledge to get them there? And we haven't really ever focused on that before. So I'm hoping all of those things push. And again, none of it's overnight, and I wish it was for everybody's child's sake. I still think they're getting a very high quality education, but I think we'll continue to get better.
All right, very good, thank you. Any other questions? All right. That will take us to unfinished business. That'll move us to the superintendent search update. We have Dr. Coward with MSBA here tonight to give us an update on where we're at.
Well, good evening, everyone. Great news. First off, I have to give a huge shout out to Cameron Porter and to Dr. Welly. They have been amazing to work with in getting your survey out and communicating and then getting us set up for our forum. So the job was posted, as was said, on September the 5th. Survey is out now. So again, board, anything you can do to help get that pushed and get people to sign and fill that out, please help us with that. And then we have the forum set up for October the 7th. And that starts at 8 o'clock in the morning and literally goes all day into the evening. The only group that we will be meeting with the next day on Zoom will actually be our leadership teams from your booster clubs, so your sports, your band, those type of folks. Just because of their work schedules, it just works better for them. So we'll do that. So we've gotten everyone else lined up, and we're pretty excited about that. So everything from business all the way through. So it should be a great day for us. One of the things that I did want to talk about, though, was I did have the opportunity to meet with Ms. Schwartz and Mr. Porter and express some concerns that some of you had that you may not feel like you were getting to know the candidates well enough. And so I wanted to come with you with some additional strategies that we can put into place so that you can really get to understand the candidates and maybe have a better chance to see them. So I wanted to share those with you tonight and see which ones, or all of them, that you would like to implement. We can certainly do all that. So let me share those with you as we do that. First off, I want to talk about your first screening interviews, which are set up for early December. And those are originally set up as Zoom because of the travel sometimes for many of the candidates, because you'll have from 5 to 7 candidates that you'll be working with. One of the things that we can do, if you would like, is we can move that to an in-person. And so they would have to come and do their screenings in person. However, to meet some legal requirements and to make sure that we stay where we need to be legally, it would be the choice of the candidate if they wanted to do it in person or on Zoom. That way we're meeting all of our requirements too. So that would be option number 1. So we can just move those in person. And so that does give you that opportunity to not see them just at the interviews, but see them first and then see them again. And so we can, I'm going to go through all of these and then we can talk about them and see which ones you like the best, okay? The second thing we can do is that we can have your finalist. There's a program that we use called Advanced Insights. If you've ever done anything like a DISC assessment, any of those type of things, really tells you a lot about the person. And frankly, it's on page 19, which tells you their strengths and their areas for improvement, and literally can talk about everything from what kind of a leader are they going to be and what are the areas that they're going to need support. So it tells you a lot about them as a person and what they could be, so we can include that for your finalist. It's about a 45-minute assessment that they would have to take, so that's why we would only ever do it with our finalist then on that piece. And then the last thing that I would really recommend to you would just be a performance event. And so a performance event is an event that happens during the interview itself, and actually we would start the interview with it. I would actually like to work with Dr. Welly and his team to identify what would be the most important in Grain Valley to do for that. So identifying either a financial, an academic, any type of a long-range plan. As you look at our data, what are the things that are really sticking out to you? And it really makes them have to perform for you, but also gets you to know how are they looking at your data, what's their analytical skills, and then also what are their presentation skills as we do that. So those are the 3 things I would recommend to you, would be moving the screenings to in-person at their choice, doing the advanced insight for your finalist, and then adding a performance event. The other piece that's on there, that's on the application that you will see, everyone is required to ask, why do they want to be the superintendent in X districts? So in this case, why do you want to be the superintendent in Grain Valley? And I think that's an important piece you want to know, so that will be part of the application. I want you to know that. So what are your thoughts on those recommendations? I will tell you that in the past, there were some attempts to do things like have them in for cookies or do something like that. Really, the candidate is always the candidate, and they're always in interview status. And so that really has not helped, and so we do not recommend doing that at all. It is really, doesn't get you any more information than you get from the other ones. Again, I will tell you that if you will trust the process, I do think that you're going to get, I think you're going to get the candidates that you want. So, thoughts?
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody have any questions or comments to start?
I've got a few.
Sure.
The idea of switching it from Zoom to in-person, For me, that's an all or none, because I do think it gives people an unfair advantage if they're in person. So I don't love the idea of them having the option. I understand that that's the requirement.
It is.
So in my opinion, it would just stay Zoom if it were up to me. I think that the performance component, I think it was option 3.
Yes, sir.
I really like the sound of that.
It's a great
And
piece.
then I guess my question is around references, because really I want to know how these people lead.
Sure.
And so you're vetting those references, we're not talking to them, correct?
Correct. We will do those references, but besides the references that they provide for us, which they have to give us at least 5, then we reach out even beyond the 5 that they give us. So for example, whatever school district or region that they're from, we make a connection there to find other references, to find out not just who they told us to listen to, but we really want to find out from everyone that we can how to get that information. Then we share that information with you when we look at the reviews, at the applications, and we look at those references at that night. So you'll get all that information when you get that.
So we'll be getting detail, like when you ask for references, sometimes it's, yes, this person was employed at this location at this time.
These are detailed letters that they have to include for you. Yes, sir.
Okay.
You'll get all of those.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? So, go ahead.
My only comment is I do like the addition of the items. I feel like it gives us more information and more knowledge on our candidates that we're trying to figure out. So I would be in favor of that. The assessment as well, the DISC. I can see Jared's concern with all or nothing. It is an unfair advantage. I love the option of being able to see them in person an additional time though. So I'm torn on that one. But I like and then the performance event makes total sense to me too. So I'm in support of all of those changes or additions.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I do really like the performance event piece, because when you think about it, if, what are you going to do for Green Valley? This is an area where we might need some assistance. How do we do that? So I did really appreciate that one. Just recently completing a DISC assessment and the information that was given and how you were a leader and where you were at, invaluable, amazing. My concern with the Zoom in person is you're asking this of possible finalists. And so we're going to hopefully have people that are outside of the state of Missouri, they're flying in, their hotel, their food, all of that. That seems costly to me for them for a 5 to 7, they're not there yet.
Correct.
So a finalist, absolutely. But just a possibility is a concern for me. And I, like Jared, if it's either all or none, it's an unfair advantage. If 3 can come in and 4 cannot, you can read a person much better in person than you can on a Zoom call. So I don't know that we're really truly getting a feel for who they are if it's not all or nothing.
I appreciate that. And by the way, on the insight screening, we would actually, in the following year, whoever you select in July, would actually meet with them, representatives from the board and representatives from your executive team, would actually go through that with them. And so that they would have an understanding as a team where they're starting also. So we would use it in that manner also as part of that training and part of that transition process for you. Any other thoughts? Just so that I'm clear, and I have my marching orders here. So we're going to keep the screenings in Zoom, is what I'm hearing. And
Well-
we're going to move to the insight and to the performance event, or Mr. Porter?
Yeah, so I'm not sure on if we're gonna keep them at Zoom yet or not. Does anybody else have any thoughts on one way or another?
Well, I would definitely prefer, I think, in person as much as possible. I'd like to have as much time in front of
Sure.
these people being in front of me, being able to communicate to our board as much as possible. So I'm not. I think if we can give the option, I think I would be for that. So I'm not necessarily opposed to giving them the option. It's their choice, right, of whether they
Yeah,
can
we're
do
required to
so.
give it to them as their choice, yes. It would have to be their choice, not our choice. It would be their choice.
So, yeah, I'm not opposed. I think as much time as we'd have in front of them, I think if there's also an option, I don't know how this would work, and I don't know where other people are with this as far as what other school districts do, but our finalists, if there's an option of being able to get it down to 2 and having another round of conversations where we could spend more time, I would be for that as well, but I don't know what that looks like.
That is not a part of our process or any process that I'm aware of. But I understand exactly what you're saying. I get that.
Sure.
Any thoughts, Mr. Pollard?
Yes, I think I'm with Ms. Swartz, maybe Dr. Taylor too. If they could all attend in person, that would be ideal, but if not, then you're only getting a solid read on however many could attend. So you said that's not part of the process. Could it be part of the process?
I don't think that you're going to gain anything from it, to be very frank with you, to get down to your final 2, because your final 2, you're going to ask them to come in for an extended interview with you too. I'm not sure I know what you're going to learn at the next interview. If you go from 3 to 2, I'm not sure I know exactly what it is you're going to learn at that process. The other piece we're running into is your timeline. You're trying to finish this up before the winter break. And so we're a little tight on time in the first place to get this done by that time. And so then you're asking people to come in again, another time for that. Please keep in mind there are multiple openings across the state right now, and these people are applying multiple places. And so I want to try to get this wrapped up. You're one of the earliest ones to get done. I would like to get that done for you if I can.
But your recommendation would be from the 3 to the 1, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank
My recommendation would not be to just bring in 2 finalists. My recommendation would be bring in 3. You need that variation because I want you to make the very best choice you can for this district.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, sir.
Okay. As far as the in-person versus Zoom interviews, I mean, my position is that I'm also one that would like to give them the option, so I'm not quite sure how we move forward with that. Because, yes, I fully understand that it might be a disadvantage for someone that decides they want to Zoom in, but at the same time, they do have the opportunity to come in person as well, is the way I look at it. So,
I think everybody performs better in person, and so I do think it gives them an unfair advantage. This isn't the hill I want to die on,
Right.
so I don't care that much either way. But, to me, all or none makes it more fair, but I don't, like I said, this isn't a big deal to me. You want to make it optional, go for it.
all right, let's go ahead and leave it as Zoom for
Okay.
the first round.
Okay.
We will have the disc for the finalists.
Mhm.
And for a performance event, what we had spoke about, and I don't know that you specifically went into detail, but so that would be part of their hour interview.
Mhm.
So whatever time they spent on the performance event, let's just say it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that would leave another either 50 or 45 minutes for the actual interview portion, just making sure everybody knows the process. And then as far as what the performance event would be over, does that need to be determined now, or would that be at a later time?
Does not need to be determined now. I'd really like to work with Dr. Welly on that one, frankly, just to identify some things and then come to you guys and say, these are the ones we're looking at. I prefer not to do those in a public meeting, frankly, because then they all know what the performance events are going to be. So I'd like that to be something that they have to do after the screening in preparation to get ready, because that happens to superintendents all the time. So let's make it a real life as much as we can. But we will come up with some things that I think will make sense to you. We can talk about that when we're reviewing the applications and identifying who we want for your finalist.
All right, any,
So the amount of time, I guess, Jeff, the amount of time that we have in front of these individuals total, it would equal what, around a couple hours tops?
like, in person with them, or just,
Well, yeah. I
Either
mean,
way, like-
Either, in person is what I'm thinking.
yeah, I mean, in person, it'd be 1 hour is about the amount of time that we'd have as a board with them.
Right. If you want to move your interview, your final interview to a different date, right now you can't start them until I believe we're settled for 4 o'clock because we have issues with people that are jobs and they're working. Other districts, people have frankly taken the day off. And so you can have 2 hours. They can do the performance event and you can have a longer period of time. But because of trying to meet the needs of your district, we really can't start those interviews until 4 o'clock.
Is that something that we want to look at doing, is
You can move to,
moving the day to,
Just thinking about the amount of time that we have for this decision with, only having an hour with an individual to determine this position, that doesn't seem like very much time for interview, in my opinion.
respectfully, sir, you're going to have all their applications. You're going to have all their background from their social media. You're going to have all their references. You're going to have their background stuff.
Understand
that
the written stuff, and I get
Correct.
that, and I think that's,
Sure.
that's typical.
Mhm.
I think even in the corporate world, right, you're
Sure.
gonna have you're gonna have a whole, list of things that people would do.
Sure.
And I don't know that even in the corporate world, you would see just, for that position, a 1 hour time slot to be able to interview somebody and be able to make that decision. That's just my opinion. I don't know where the rest of the board would be on that, but it would be nice to be able to, and I realize it's our time as well.
Yes, sir.
So it's just determining whether or not we feel like that 1 hour is enough, and if everybody else feels like that's plenty enough time to be able to make that decision. Okay.
anybody else have a,
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying really hard to trust the process. I just come from a different world
Sure,
where when I
I understand
identify
that.
a candidate, it's 3-4 interviews before
Mhm.
I make an offer. So it's hard for me to
I understand.
really lean into this, but I'm trying real hard
I know
to
you are.
trust the process.
I agree with you, Mr. Williams, as far as the time. It's really hard to say we're gonna hire the CEO in 1 hour with all the background, all the information. It's hard for me to wrap my head around going back to the community saying, yep, we interviewed him for an hour and this is the new leader of the district. I am very open to moving the day and making the interviews longer if that is what the rest of the board is willing to do.
I think that's hard because willing to do and able to do are very different with what we can do. Taking off during that week in December it probably is a blackout time for this district as well and requires no pay. So I think that's what's really hard too in looking at the different things. So we have to make sure all of us can be there because this is a valuable decision. I also don't want to, again, trying to trust the process, right? This is the first time we have done this. This is the first time we've done this and taking it very seriously. All of us are because it's an important decision. I don't want to minimize the whole entire process to saying we only spent 1 hour with this person. I understand that that's FaceTime through the process. My understanding is that we have gathered a lot of data and input from this surveys and from the forums and from all the other information that we have essentially, like in an ideal world, we would have 7 candidates and we would want to hire all 7, and we are trying to struggle as to differentiate between even narrowing it down to 3 and then narrowing it down to 1. Like that is my hope through this, is that we get everything right and we knock it out of the ballpark and we have all that. And then it's just like, oh God, I mean, to then figure that out, right? So I hope we're in a position that feels like we can't make a wrong decision out of all the candidates. Like all three of them are great, all whatever. But again, I don't want to minimize that, all the work that's going into this, like to then just that 1 hour. But it's a big decision that has a lot of weight and responsibility. So I can see both sides, but I don't want to take it to like face value of time. Like there's other parts.
There be flexibility for some of that to come naturally. So I've been in interviews before where an hour seems like forever. And I've also been in interviews where an hour, it goes really well and it just kind of extends naturally. Is that a possibility, just to?
From an ethical standpoint, you'd want to ask the same questions to your same
Correct,
folks.
correct.
But if you want to, for example, if we're adding the performance event, you know, I've got all the time in the world, not really, but I do. We can expand those to, you know, they need to be an hour and 15 minutes so that you have an hour at least for questions and that part also, because I want to give them a chance to interview you too.
Correct.
At the end, they're going to ask you questions. And so, remember, they're interviewing the district as well as you're interviewing them.
So is there any, I mean, understanding where we can't move it, the time slot during the week, I get that. But is there any possibility of moving it to a Saturday? Well, we don't want to do that. We want to do them all on the same day.
I don't want to get them done on the same day, you really do. Saturday, December the 20th would be your date.
Because right now we're doing it on
You're doing your screenings on the 11th,
the 11th.
yes. We are meeting on the 8th to review all the
That's right,
applications.
the 16th.
And then we have the screenings, and then we have to notify them
Right.
and let them know about the performance event. And so, and take the assessment. So now they are on the 16th,
Correct. Yeah. So the 20th would be,
the Saturday before Christmas. And I'm sure you're close to out of school at that time,
the 19th is our last day.
yes.
So we're looking at either keeping it where we are or moving it to a Saturday
And the only day.
to
is
give
the
us more
20th.
time.
That's correct.
What would that time commitment on Saturday be? Because we would have 3 candidates and potentially 2 hours apiece.
Correct. With time in between.
We'd like for them to have a tour of your district with someone here. So we need to do that also.
And right now that's happening during the,
Yes,
Prior
we rotate
to-
that. We rotate that throughout the interview process. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
And we feel like we need to keep them all on the same day. That's what
Yeah. We need to do them all on the same day.
and what's our reasoning for that exactly?
Well, again, just to keep it all fair and you're not, keeping people, basically just to keep it all fair.
It is a consistency measure,
Yeah.
is why.
Gotcha.
So let's just for a second look at it from the candidate's perspective. We would be asking them the weekend before Christmas on a Saturday to come here from wherever they're from, probably on the busiest travel day of the year. I just don't think that's a real good start.
Would a good compromise be just to say we're going to extend the interviews? We haven't set them yet, and we can talk about this. It doesn't have to be decided today. We can extend the interviews by an hour and a half. We're just going to have a late night. We just know that. And if that gives you more time, I am certainly open to do that.
Thoughts? What's that? Yeah, we are used to late nights.
At this point, I'm a strong whatever. I'll do. I'll do whatever I need to do.
I love it.
I'd like to point out that we've spent more time talking about this than we will have with the candidates at this point.
is the date set in stone that I understand we would like to have a candidate picked before Christmas break or the new year.
Yes, ma'am.
However, I feel like we are, at this point, possibly rushing. Like, I feel like we're just trying to push all of this out. And so then my question becomes, is that set in stone? Or does that give us other options to not right at Christmas time? Maybe not a blackout day that someone could take off, things like that. That's just my one question.
Sure, I will tell you, I'm doing the center and the independent ones the first 2 and 3 weeks of January also. And the reason for the date that was selected was so that you guys literally would have the first choice, let's just be honest. So it's kind of that, yes, it is difficult. But I am willing to do what you guys need to do to be satisfied with your decisions.
I'm okay with it being a late night, and just extending things on the date that we already have. Jeff, that would probably be my suggestion at this point.
Yeah, I'm with Mr. English on it. Strong whatever, and I'll bring sugar cookies, right?
Okay. So we'll plan to finalize it, but
We'll
as of
finalize it.
now-
We can finalize it later.
as
but
of
just
now, it's probably going to be extended past an hour for the candidates.
Because we're doing the performance event too, that makes
Yeah.
sense. So gives us more time. Okay? Thank you guys very much.
All right. Any other
Anything,
questions?
anything else?
All right.
Okay, looking forward to October the 7th.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right. That will take us to the CSIP annual priorities. I'd look for a motion to approve the 2024-2025 CSIP annual priorities as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Welly, would you like to take us through the updates on this?
Yes, thank you. We bring this back. We had some discussion with the board in July, and some of the additions that we'll highlight tonight are a direct result of that night's conversation. Some of it is we're just a couple months later and we know more, and so we have more details in. So I'll draw your attention to page 3, which is where the first priority starts. This is student feedback practices, and the changes that we see since July is just clarification on the budget and the funding source. So we've made those adjustments. Priority number 2 is learning environment. This was a point of direct discussion in July, and so we have added the measure that we will continue to research ways to support diversity training for our team members. So our goal is to empower any of our staff members, any of our employees to be able to address any diversity-related issue that they're dealing with in the classroom with their students. So we want to be able to make sure that they are equipped to be highly effective at their job. So we've added that as a measure for number 2. And then in priority number 3 for facilities, you know, we've developed this one a lot. So we've been moving along here, so the measures can get more specific now than what we knew this summer. So by December, we are still going to frame a ballot measure language for the board for spring of 26. But what we've added is steps 1 through 5 that kind of build towards that so that you know more specifically the work that's going on. And some of this is already underway. So for example, measure number 1, which is new, is underway right now. We're evaluating our facility needs for our high needs special education programs, especially at the elementary levels. And then we will come up with basically construction standards of what kind of space do we need for these specialized programs. We've never been proactive about providing for these high needs special needs programs. We just put them in a room that was designed for 2nd grade, or in some cases it was designed for something much smaller. So we're going to be very intentional there. Number 2, we're going to do a more thorough evaluation of Matthews Elementary for potential additions and renovations. And with the purchase of land tonight, we can say we can that's a big check mark, because that really opens up the possibilities for evaluating our needs at Matthews. And now they'll go in structurally and they'll say, all right, at the school, we need to modify the cafeteria to accommodate more students. So is the current cafeteria easily repurposed into checking other boxes of other needs that we have at the school? Or is it a demo, or what is it to get us a larger cafeteria? Can it be added on to? Those are the kinds of things that'll happen between now and December. We want to have most of those squared away even before December. Number 3, we want to explore the expansion of the land footprint at Matthews Elementary. Well, guess what? Exploration is over, because tonight we expanded it. Number 4, evaluate the need for additional elementary classrooms at Snyabar or Stony Point. I suspect what's going to happen here is we're going to come up with a tentative plan that would show what it would take to add on to both of those schools. And my suspicion is we'll do one of them now, and the other one we'll kind of keep in our pocket, so that if we get to a point in another 2 or 3 years where we have an opportunity to come back and do that, but we're still not at the point where we need a 5th elementary, then you can do the other schools. So that's just an example of what the plan could look like. And then number 5, evaluate middle school athletic and activity facility needs. And we do have a timetable for that. It seems like it was late October or November, where the architects will be working with our coaches and administrators on facility needs for outdoor middle school athletic facilities. Other items that we've talked about that are not specifically on the list, but I want to remind the board that, taking our vestibules, our guest entrances to the next level, that's still on the list, even though the assessment for that is mostly finished already, so that's why it's not on this chart. And there'll be other district improvements that'll happen as well. Also, we've made updates to the funding source here with a budget on our pre-design work. With that, Mr. President, I'd open that up for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions on the CSIP as it's presented? Okay. All in favor of approving the 2024-2025 CSIP annual priorities as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. That will take us to new business. Setting the tax levy for 2025. I'd look for a motion to set the 2025 tax levy rate at $4.7396 as presented.
So moved?
Second?
All right, any discussion or questions on this? Hearing none. All in favor of setting the tax rate at $4.7396, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next item, I'd look for a motion to approve. These are for certified and non-certified substitutes. So I'd look for a motion to approve Elisa Hefner as a substitute teacher, and we'll do a roll call on this.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Pollard?
Abstain?
Mr. Williams? Yes. Dr. Taylor? Ms. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. English?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries. Next item is I'd look for a motion to approve the remaining list of certified and non-certified substitutes. This can be in altogether.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor of approving the list, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And that will take us to executive session.
I make a motion to adjourn and go into executive session as authorized by the provisions of section 610.021, number 3 and 13 of the revised statutes of Missouri.
So moved?
Mr. Pollard?
Yes.
Mr. Williams? Yes. Dr. Taylor? Yes. Ms. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. English?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.